Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. We're looking ahead to the final round of the All-Ireland group stages, and it's Armagh taking on Galway at Breffni Park on Saturday evening. I'm delighted to be joined by former Galway defender Finian Hanley, and he's going to help me look forward to this one. And Finian, obviously, the way that things have panned out, Armagh already qualified for the All-Ireland quarterfinals, and Galway we're not quite there yet, so it's a weird position for both teams probably going in that Armagh don't need to win it while Galway they do have to win it because results elsewhere could see them drop out of the championship.
Yeah, there's a bit of fire to this one, Sean. Yeah, surely there's like the fixture in the last 2 years, I suppose, given where we were in Sligo last year, for our match come and get the draw. Obviously, the All Ireland final, um, bit more of a one-sided event down in Pearse Stadium in January, and then obviously this one coming up. It's a different way of looking at the game. But look, I don't think. I know this is it's been the talk of the country the last while. What Armagh will show up, but there's too many players in Armagh at the minute not to show up. To be honest, they've so many. Since the All Ireland final last year, they've so many people that have come and gone and changed what went out that day. So I think they're going to be very, very, very competitive on Saturday. And if they get half a chance to put the Galway to the sword, I think they will.
Yeah, I think that's from an Armagh perspective, Finian. It's while Armagh don't have anything to play for in terms of progression into the Lion Seas, there's a chance they can knock out Galway, and that's a big hitter in terms of the Ireland race. So there maybe is a wee bit on the line for Armagh.
There is definitely, yeah. And look, if you look at the All Ireland final last year, the players that played and look at the game against Dublin 2 weeks ago, like goalies are different. Blaine Hughes was in last year, had a fantastic season. Ethan Rafferty is kind of the mainstay now. Aaron McKay, Connor Mackin hasn't played. Like, then you've got Charlie Ogas in, he's flying it, wasn't in for wasn't a mainstay last year. Obviously Forker, Grimley, those boys were leading the charge last year in the All Ireland final. That's all changed now. You've Duffy, McMullen, McQuillan, like lads who have played now, and McGeeney is putting a lot of trust in these guys as well. So the lads going out on Saturday evening will be thinking, quarter final, we want to be playing. So that's one thing, and I just think they're super competitive. And I think Kieran McGeeney made the point that you can't take the foot off the gas this time of the year. The season's too condensed, and to put out a weaker team on Saturday night is risky, way more risky than putting out a full team. I think because those lads wouldn't have played for a month. They would have played against Dublin, and then they're playing in a quarter final. That's 4 weeks, and I think momentum is more important than the rest. Obviously, if there's a knock or a niggle and Oisin O'Neill just protect them, they can do that. But they're still going to be very strong, and I don't think anyone's going to go out and say we want to lose. They want to win the game. They just don't want to get any casualties or any issues going forward. So. And they're good enough to win the game the way they're going. So it's a tricky assignment for Galway.
Like if Armagh do mix up their team a wee bit, Finian, like you named a lot of the players that we could see, possibly the likes of Aidan Falker, now Grimley, Joe McElroy and Alan McKay haven't started the game all year and they're making their way back from injury, but it doesn't really weaken Armagh that much. Like if now Grimley's coming into the midfield, you couldn't say Armagh's midfield is weakened for it. It's a like for like nearly change for a lot of those players coming in.
100%, like Grimley, particularly Forker, you look at he's been kind of in and out. He played in January in the league. Like he's the captain mainstay. He's one of McGeeney's biggest soldiers. He puts huge trust in him. Can kick a score, can play, can mark. He's very aggressive, really good in the air as well. So he's a player that's going to really want to be stuck in this. He's the captain. He was the captain last year. He's going to want to be back. So, like players like that, they're generational players. Is what Armagh have at the minute. And obviously after losing an Ulster final, there's only one show in town for Armagh, and that's back to back because we haven't seen back to back a lot over Bar Dublin over the years and Kerry in the 2000s. It's very, very difficult to do. So there's a lot of history on the line for Armagh, and I think they'll want to keep momentum going. And the competition for places is off the charts up there at the minute. Now, were they super impressive against Dublin? There was cracks, I think. I think particularly in the first 10 or 15 minutes, I think Dublin got in and at that full back line, and I think that's somewhere where they will, Kieran McGeeney and his management team will look to bolster. They'll look to maybe, keep those boys in their toes, because you don't want anyone in there that's stale. Because inside forwards on Sunday, Shane Walsh, Robert Finnerty, Damien Comer, if there's any bit of weakness in there, and that's somewhere where you can't get confidence back at 2, 3, and 4. You can't just turn it on overnight. If you get a bit of a hose and you can't say, sure, it was only a game, we didn't have to win. That goes with you to the next game, whether you like it or not. So I think that's an area where Galway can get at Armagh, and I think where Armagh will want to bolster after the Dublin game.
Do you see Damien Comer starting Finian, or I suppose it's nearly must win for Galway. Or it's now or never. So they probably, if he's fit, I think he did come on against Derry, didn't he? So if he's fit, you'd imagine they'll be thinking about starting him.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think they have to. I think there's no choice. There's no Galway, there's no real rumblings out of the camp this week, but I think the selection is going to be super interesting. Which way, we took off 4 All-Stars last Sunday week. Against Derry, in Shane and Paul and Killian, are two out of the three of them are going to start. Is Shane going to start and Damien going to start? Then you've got to still make room for Keen Darcy, who made a huge contribution when he came on. So there's a selection headache for Porrick, and look, Galway have to go full duck for this. If Derry were to topple, Derry won't fear going to down to play Dublin. So if Derry were to win and Armagh were to win, that's the season over for Galway. And 3 or 4 weeks ago, Galway were top two, top three favourites for the All Ireland. So this is it for the group. This is it. Full duck. Go throw the kitchen sink at it. So a difficult place. Look, Porrick is huge experience, and the management team in Mickey and Dave Morris and Dave Owen, the boys. You put your trust in them. They've been in 2 finals down the stretch. So getting the selection right. But the last day Sam O'Neill came off after 18 minutes. That was maybe one that they thought they got wrong, but obviously the substitution was a huge one because Keen Darcy came in and had a massive game. So I think Damien Comer will start if he's fit. I think that we, really have to go long and hard after the Armagh full backline early, and then get the cavalry in after that.
Seems to be a narrative opinion nearly that, Shane Walsh and Damien Comer, when they start together, tend not to play well with each other, and there's maybe when one's not there, the other does play well. Like, they're two of the best forwards in the country, so it's very hard not to play them together. But is there a remedy to that, or what do you think? Is there a way around that, or is that even true? You'd watch more Galway games than I would, of course.
It's an interesting one. I suppose if you look at the type of players they are, Damien wants the ball early. He wants the ball early and often, and he wants it anyway, high, low, doesn't matter. His power, like once it's into a 50-50, he's going to win it. There's no defender in the country that's going to stop him if he's fit. I suppose the issue, or maybe what people are referring to, is that Shane gets a ball in a 1v1, he's going to take him on. He could be out the pitch. Damien could be one-on-one inside, but Shane's going to take him on 1v1 because that's his strength. His strength is pace, power. He'll go past a guy in a 1v1. Most players he'll go past in a 1v1. So does Shane always look up? He's a brilliant kick passer, but more often than not, when Shane gets the ball, if you're at a Galway game, people are shouting, "Take him on, take him on, take him on." Whereas Damien would probably prefer for the likes of Paul, John Maher, John Daly, you know, Dylan McHugh to get the ball because they're looking at putting it in. So maybe there's a bit of method to it, but surely this day and age we're able to get the best out of the both of them. We're going to need to get the best out of the both of them. If it was my decision, I'd probably leave one of them in reserve, maybe Shane, because the game will open up. It's going to be fast and quick and hectic. So you don't want a fresh Shane Walsh coming off the bench. Do you know what I mean? I think that's something that Galway might look at on Saturday.
I suppose, what's the feeling in Galway, Finian, just at the minute? Because obviously you'd mentioned, like, obviously with last year's All Ireland final, beat by a point. Kerry beat Galway, 3 years ago by wasn't a big margin, only a couple of points in it, and Galway were right in it, with 5 minutes left. So, like, is there a feeling now after the Connacht final? I'm sure maybe people are disappointed that how the group stages has gone, but is there a feeling that they can still push on, that they're still a real top contender for Sam?
Yeah, there is, of course. I suppose, look, we've been in two All Ireland finals in 3 years. We'd barely got to a semi final in 20 years before that. There's a real buzz around this team. Like, look, they've given everything. They've given us some brilliant days. There's, one of the best Galway teams that have ever put on the jersey. So, and there's one thing about the current squad is that they're never bet. They're never, even the last day against Derry down the stretch came back. You go back to Sligo last year, game was over, came back and won it. Obviously losing two All Ireland finals is difficult. That they can go anyway, but I think in a lot of the other games, like Dublin should have lost by a lot more, came back, went down the stretch. So look, when Galway supporters go, including myself, go to the matches, at present, we know what we're getting. We know we're getting fight to the very end. We've brilliant players in the Shanes and Damians, Robert Finnerty's, the John Mahers, like brilliant footballers who would give everything for the jersey. So look, when you have that, you just need things to click. And if things can click for Galway, they're going to match anyone, including Armagh, including Dublin, including Kerry. So just a little bit of confidence, a little bit of finding our way at the minute to get the right blend. But look, one if that comes, then I think we feel we get a win on Saturday. Galway people will feel they're back in the mix for this All Ireland again, and we've just gone through kind of. And again, remember, it's been the toughest group, three Division One teams. It hasn't been straightforward after a kind of final to come in and play against these teams is very difficult. But Galway have been there or thereabouts. Draw last kick of the game against Dublin. It's not as if they're getting hammered or well bet. They're there and thereabouts, and get over Saturday and fancy your chances against most teams.
I think the one thing you sort of jumps out when you think of Galway, Finian, like this current team is the sheer size of some of them. Like you listed the likes of Paul Conroy, John Maher around the middle there. You've Matthew Tierney, Cian Darcy, like huge men in around the middle of the field that I'm sure they're going to be pressing Armagh kickouts and Ben Creeley, now Grimley, Jolly Oak Burns, Armagh have big men around there too. So probably with the new rules, it's going to be just a good old fashioned battle around the middle of the field.
Yeah, the kickouts are going to be interesting. Connor Gleeson's got a long range, and I go back to the wind in Breffni Park that blows when you're up there from the town end. I think, do you go long and try hit a pocket of Maher, Conroy, Darcy, brilliant fielders. Darcy came on the last day and started fielding the ball. Maher is Maher's everywhere, as he always is. So there's huge size, but you put that against the likes of Creeley, as you said, Jarly O'Burns, Soupy Campbell's not a small man when he comes off and these they're also good in the air, so it makes for a really good spectacle around the middle of the park, and I think they'll go after Ethan Rafferty. I think they have to. I think that's where we have to get some gains. Galway needs 60-70% of the possession around the middle to really go after our man. Our man won't like that, but again, you don't want to be losing those battles either because you're on the back foot straight away.
And I suppose what have you made of the new rules? We mentioned the kick out rule. There's the 2 pointers that we mentioned the Salt Hill game in January where Armagh played Galway and it was the 2 pointers that night. Sort of won it for Galway. Conroy kicked one, Shane Walsh kicked a free. There was a couple of others, I think, 2 pointers that night. But as a whole, Finian, has it improved the game or what do you make of it?
No end, Sean. I suppose no end. It's been revolutionary for the whole thing. Like it was, I suppose the All Ireland final last year for anyone outside of ourselves who were in it and emotionally invested in it. I'd say it was a game they didn't want to see anytime soon after. So look, it was gone. The game was gone. The game was not enjoyable. You found yourself coming to games at half time because you knew it was going to be 4-all or 5-all. The excitement and enjoyment was there in the last 10 minutes, but that's not what sport is meant to be. I suppose now what you have, and look, there's, the 2 pointers are, they're divided opinion, but I think it's getting those long range shots, and some of them are brilliant. When you see Michael Murphy on the ball or Rian O'Neill, Paul Conroy kicking like in Connacht finals in big matches, kicking these massive scores from distance, it's really good. I think the kick out rule is exciting. It takes the control away from the managers. Maybe the managers and the coaches had way too much control going. if you go back the last year or 2 years, it was just all about control and control and how everything happens and times in the match. Whereas now you just can't do that, which makes for a way better spectacle. A way better spectacle. We're seeing way more high fielding. We're seeing, the goalies are still been a part of it. Look, everything's not perfect. The tapping the ball over the bar by the goalie for 1 point, 2 point. That's something that probably needs to be looked at. There's, the kick out rule when you catch the ball, and if you're touched, it's 50 meters, stuff like that. There's tweaks, but you had to go full duck on this. The FRC had to go full duck on this to really change it. Obviously, they have to come back a bit. They went really hard on it, but they had to because the game was absolutely horrid, if you ask me, at times. And I know Kieran McGeeney will say that there was horror games years ago as well, which I agree with. I just think that the control now is you can still control the games, and innovative coaches can really come to the fore now. But I think the spectacle, this summer has been absolutely brilliant. It's been one of the best summers for football in a long, long time. So it's super enjoyable. And if your team is winning or competing, then it's way more enjoyable as well.
Just on the 2 pointers, we're probably going to see two of the best 2 pointers. Hopefully, going to see them on Saturday night in full flow. You mentioned the both of them, Paul Conroy and Ryan O'Neill. I suppose they're probably the two players that would instantly jump to your mind once you think of the two pointers.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Like, look, Reno O'Neill doesn't even throw his leg at the ball when he's kicking it. It's phenomenal. He's a phenomenal technique. It just brushes off his boot, and it can go mile up in the sky and curling lovely. And obviously, Paul is kick passing, and obviously his shooting is super on point. And I think both players will have to be watched around that arc on Saturday night. I go back to the wind. If there is a wind in Breffni Park, which at times there is, then you can see the militants going after those players and being very, very tight to their boots. I think teams are doing that now. They look at Arena O'Neill, they look at Paul Conroy, and curb that. Like, that could be 6 points stopping either of those from getting 2 pointers. So I think both teams will look at that. But I suppose they have other players like Rob Finnerty can kick 2 pointers, Oisin O'Neill can kick 2 pointers. So it makes for a real interesting encounter. And then you've got, big men inside as well, and really, really fast inside forward. So but look, Rian and Paul are two players that everyone wants to see on Saturday night. You want to see those long range scores. So it's going to be an interesting tussle.
Just before I let you go, Finian, I have two questions for you. The first one's a very difficult one. That's who do you think's gonna win All Ireland? Who's your front runner at the minute? It seems to change every week. Different podcasts and pundits you're listening to. It's hard to nail it down. But at the minute, who's your front runner?
I suppose I haven't overly changed. Look, everyone is talking about Armagh at the minute. I suppose you can look at the situation now with Armagh being really good. Obviously, super competitive team with massive, massive numbers. To look into the reserves, and I think as you go longer into the season, the bigger panels will come to the fore. The issue I would have with Armagh, not the issue, but I suppose the the reason I wouldn't put the house on them is back to back is so difficult. It's so difficult when you get to the crunch. Teams will come after you in semi-finals, and you need that hunger, and that hunger is very hard. And look, they've come out of Ulster. They've had a very tough season. So whilst I think they have a super chance, I think they could be pipped along the way. I think Kerry are going to come in fresh if they get Jeremy O'Connor back, if Paddy Clifford, if they get a full panel. I don't know, it's ifs and buts, but I think, if Kerry have a full panel going into a quarter final, I think they have the players to do it. I think they have the they'll have the freshness to do it. They'll have the freshness. They'll have come through an easier. Obviously, Munster isn't. I go back to this all the time. I think Munster isn't a. It's a very quiet route for them, and then they've had a very easy group stage as well, if you ask me. So once they come through unscathed and get everyone playing, their AVBs might be more competitive than some of the games they played in the group. So, and that's with the greatest respect, but that's the team they are. So with David Clifford in your team, and they get the players back, they would be probably my front runners. And today that it mightn't look like that, but I think when you get to a semi-final final, you need to be fresh, you need to be hungry, and I think they might just have the edge over other teams because of that.
And finally, Finian, who's going to win on Saturday night? Do you think?
Is this? Oh God, it's
That could
look,
be a tougher one.
it could be a tougher one, yeah, because I suppose we don't know what's going to happen. That's the interest when we're driving up from Galway Saturday night. We don't really know what's going to happen. I think Galway will want it that bit more. I don't think Armagh are not going to want it. I don't think Armagh are going to come in, and say, "Oh, sure, it's only a match or whatever," and we move on to the quarters. It's not going to happen. It's going to be super competitive game. Um, I just think if Galway get shamed in and get all the big players on the pitch and they're fighting for their lives. They're fighting for their lives. They're lost and it's summer over and it's back to club football. So I think this team have that fight in them. And I think they get over the line, but I think it'll be by the narrowest, maybe 3 or 4 points, couple of 2 pointers, but nothing hectic in and in the end, Sean.
Yeah, I think if the recent championship games are anything to go by, Finian, it'll probably go right down to the wire and there'll only be whatever a couple of points in between the two of them because that's just the way it's been the last couple of years. So, yeah, we're expecting a good one and we'll be right across it as usual with match reports, previews, interviews, and hopefully another podcast. Maybe on Sunday we'll get a bit of reaction from the game. So, speak to everybody then. Finian, great to hear from you. Thanks very much for coming on and I'll maybe get chatting to you on Saturday evening.
Lovely, Sean. Thanks a million. Enjoy the game.
The 2025 season is here, and with it comes huge ambition and momentum, both on and off the pitch. We're building for the future, investing in top-class county training facilities to support our players and county teams. Thanks to your support, we've already made incredible progress, delivering 2 full-size grass pitches. Now, work is underway on a brand new strength and conditioning hub. But we're not stopping there. This is a game-changing time for our county, and we need your support to take it to the next level. Join us in building a brighter future for our teams, our players and the generations to come.